Hey everyone, episode 14 of the Holland-a-thon, and today I will be watching Spider-Man Far From Home. The reason I had to think about the title is because when I'm making this video, there's a real hype going around for the upcoming Spider-Man film, which is called No Way Home. And for some reason, those two titles just confused the heck out of me. Far From Home and No Way Home. Like, that's too little of a difference to keep it very clear. It's like the Planet of the Apes films, the reboots. For some reason, I always think that Dawn of the Planet of the Apes comes before Rise of the Planet of the Apes. But it's the other way around. Anyway, Spider-Man. I really like this film. I think it's definitely better than Homecoming. I've also seen it less times, so that's good. In fact, I think this will be the first time that I'm seeing it not in a theatre. I watched it twice in theatres though, so yeah, I really like the road trip setting, and I think it's just a great Spider-Man movie. There's a little bit of a misdirect in there somewhere, if I recall correctly, and I really like that. I think it is still considered a Phase 3 film. I like how, even though, spoilers for Endgame, Tony Stark died, he still plays a big role in this film. And I think that adds up pretty darn well. And I think it's a nice little exploration of the journey Peter Parker is going through with his grief. There's a new Spider-Man film coming out in like 3.5 months. So that makes me really excited for that film and to rewatch this film, because this is probably my favorite Spider-Man film. It's been a long time since I've seen the Tobey Maguire films. I remember liking them but not like loving them, but then again I was still quite young when I saw them, so I think this is my favorite Spider-Man film. So, can't wait to see it again. So I think I'm just going to do that, and I will let you know what I thought of it after I've seen the film. I'm back, and I'm glad to tell you that this is still my favorite Spider-Man film. At least, favorite live-action Spider-Man film. It's so much fun. So this movie is about Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, who is going on a road trip through Europe with his classmates, and on his way there, he needs to fight the elementals with his new ally called Mysterio. I really like this story, and I think a road trip is the perfect setting to introduce some new locations. Despite its huge budget, the MCU doesn't really go anywhere except for the USA and space. Doctor Strange goes to Hong Kong, I think, and Thor had that scene in London in the sequel. But apart from that, I don't think many movies are set outside of the USA. Well, except for, obviously, Wakanda and Shang-Chi. You know what, maybe there's more than I think. But anyway, Far From Home is a nice change of pace, I think. I really liked all of the locations, especially Venice, and I recently went to Venice myself, so it was nice to see all of these locations where I had actually been. I also really like how the events in Endgame play a really big role in this film. They're not just glossed over, they really have effects on the rest of the world. I really like the concept of the blip, and during every new Marvel show or movie, I look forward to seeing how it was incorporated. I also like that Tony Stark still plays a very big role in this film, as he was such a big part of Homecoming, and of course also to Spider-Man's character. And interesting to think about, but Tony Stark basically influences every single big thing in this movie. He's the reason the bad guys do what they do. He's the reason Spider-Man exists, at least in the way that he does in this version of Spider-Man. He ordered Nick Fury to give the glasses to Spider-Man, so basically every big event that happens in this film happens because of Tony Stark. And it all just makes perfect sense. It's not that he's shoehorned into this film or something just because he was in the last film. Minor characters then, I really like Zendaya as MJ. I like that they gave her a bigger role. She was kind of a quirky background character in the first film, but she didn't really do anything. But in this film, she plays a bigger role and I really like that, and I can't wait to see more of her in No Way Home. Ned, as always, is such a treasure. I really like Ned. Everything he says and does is hilarious, and his entire side story is just, it's great. It's funny, it's great. Mysterio is my favorite part of this film though. I really like him as a superhero, and then the plot twist happens. You know, the plot twist that everyone who has ever read a Spider-Man comic or watches those YouTube videos made by people who have ever read a Spider-Man comic saw coming from miles away. After that plot twist, he becomes 10 times more interesting, and I already liked him as a hero. So his plan and motivations are also almost comically petty, which I really enjoy. It's like such a tiny thing to be angry about. It's great. I love Mysterio and his entire getup. The action in this film is great. It's way better than Homecoming. I wasn't bored one bit during it. The final battle though is a bit weaker than the rest of the movie. And also right before the final battle, the movie slows down almost to a complete stop, and yeah, that just doesn't really work for me. It doesn't really get back up, I think. The music also wasn't as annoying as in Homecoming. They did use the same theme, but a different rendition, and during different parts of the film, different versions of the theme were used, so it didn't become as repetitive as in Homecoming. The music's great, and add that with fantastic fight scenes, an interesting story, the trademark MCU humor, and you've got a pretty enjoyable rewatch. I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but Tom Holland was absolutely amazing. I mean, he always is, but especially in this film, as Spider-Man, I don't know man, I just really love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. There's not really anything different in the way he plays Spider-Man compared to Homecoming or even Infinity War and Endgame. It's more of the same. I mean, he evolves, yeah, sure. He tells MJ that he's Spider-Man. I didn't really care that much about his little side quest giving the jewel to MJ, but you know, it's fine. It's not that it annoyed me. It definitely was the least interesting part about this film though. But apart from that, I think, yeah, the Peter Parker and Spider-Man in this film are just, they're great. I truly hope Tom Holland can keep playing Spider-Man for as long as possible. The age of Spider-Man in this movie is, well, debatable. Most sources say that he should still be 16, biologically speaking, because he disappeared when Thanos snapped his fingers when he was 16, and then he came back 5 years later and his body was still 16, but there wasn't exactly 5 years between Thanos' snap and the Hulk's snap, so it's like half a year or something. It's like 4.5 years or 5.5 years. So his birthday isn't really his birthday anymore. So say his birthday is in July and he came back in April, but he disappeared in November, then the July after the April he came back, he was supposed to turn 17, but his body hadn't aged 1 full year yet. So that's why it's debatable, but most people seem to agree he is still 16. So I'm going to take it as that and put it into the graph. I've got a very nice, but frankly boring, stagnating line there. Honestly, I think we have to sort out this age difference between Tom Holland and the characters he plays, because right now it's getting kind of big. Like, Tom Holland was 23 and he still plays a 16-year-old kid. I don't know, I hope in No Way Home he will at least be 18. I don't know, I just don't think they can keep having Tom Holland play Peter Parker as like a boy still. But we'll see, I guess. In conclusion, I still think Far From Home is an incredibly enjoyable film. As I said, my favorite live-action Spider-Man. It's so much fun, it's funny, the action scenes are great, and yeah, I just really love Tom Holland and the entirety of the cast. Cannot wait to see where this story is going in No Way Home. It's still a while away, but I am counting down the days. Unfortunately, the next movie I'm going to talk about isn't No Way Home, but it is in fact, and I have to look this up, it is in fact Spies in Disguise. So do join me when I talk about that, and I will see you then. Goodbye.